In this video, we're going to go over how to factor a polynomial with three terms. I call this my AC method / grouping to factor this. So again, before you factor a polynomial, you always want to check to make sure that the GCF, the greatest common factor, is factored out from all of the terms if possible. So these two examples that already occurred, and so I'm going to do the AC method. AC method is your diamond problem. It's a way to visualize what two numbers we're going to look for that multiply to your A times your C. So in this case, it's 1 times 8. So I'm going to have 8x squared in the top, and my B value, my middle term at the bottom of my x. So the question is, what two numbers multiply to 8x squared, and what two numbers will add to negative 6x? So fairly easy, negative 4x, negative 2x. Quick check, negative 4 times negative 2 will give me my positive 8x squared. Negative 4 plus negative 2 gives me our negative 6x. So what we do is we're now going to rewrite our trinomial as x squared. Now instead of writing minus 6x, I'm going to write it as the sum of these two numbers. Right, those are equivalent. What this does is it allows us to factor by grouping. And so if I look at the first two terms, I look for the GCF between these two terms, x squared and minus 4x. The GCF is x, which will leave me with an x minus 4. Between these two terms, the GCF is negative 2. Now, the reason I pulled out the negative is because I want to match x minus 4. Now I have two terms, x times x minus 4, and then negative 2 times x minus 4. Notice that the common factor of x minus 4 is in both of these, and so I'm going to factor that out. X minus 4 comes out. That will leave me with an x minus 2. And I check to see if I can do anything else, and that's my final answer. So again, this is the AC method / grouping method to factor a trinomial. Our second example, 10x squared minus 13x minus 13, we're going to follow the same procedure. So the first step is to multiply A times C, and so I have negative 30x squared. My middle term for my quadratic goes down, and so I need to think of two numbers that multiply to negative 30 and add to negative 13. Now your first guess might be negative 10 and negative 3, but a quick check gives me a positive 30, and so I actually am looking for negative 15x and positive 2x. Now we're going to rewrite our quadratic, 10x squared. Instead of the middle term, I write it as these two terms. Again, it does not matter where you put the negative 15x or the 2x. I now look at the first two terms, and I factor by grouping. And so between 10x squared minus 15x, the GCF is 5x, which will leave me with a 2x minus 3. I'm going to do the same thing over on my last two terms, and I know I need to get a 2x minus 3 here. And so this one's fairly simple. I'm just going to factor out a 1, and I'm going to group my 2x minus 3 like that. What this does is it allows me to pull out this factor of 2x minus 3 times, I'll be left with 5x plus 1. This method, as long as this is a factorable quadratic trinomial, will always work. So last things, not all of these can be factorable. In those cases, we'll call it prime, or we may need to use a different method. You're going to check to see if your final answer can be factored further. In these cases, those terms cannot be factored further. We can always check our answer by multiplying it back out, and if they were a different form, where let's say this was a higher degree 4 and this was a higher degree 2. We could use the same method, and then this would become 2x squared and 5x squared. So we can use the same methods for higher order polynomials. So this is how you factor trinomials.